what Lord Shri Krishna tells in the Bhagavad Gita about karma. That is very, very important. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells us that karma is ubiquitous and eternal, and it is not possible for anyone not to perform some karma at every moment of life, because karma is not just action or consequences of action. It is inaction also is karma. So he says that there cannot be anyone who does not perform any karma at all in their entire life. Right? Either whatever we are doing, it will either be good karma or bad karma. If you're doing your duty as a student, you are studying, you are preparing for the exam, that is your good karma. If you're not preparing, it is a bad karma. So there is karma that is happening in everybody's life, and nobody can be live a life without doing any karma, because karma itself means action. You have to do some action, right? So he says there are 5 factors which are involved in makeup of the karma. First one is adhisthana, that is the basis or the center from which one is to work. So I think even in temples we have adhisthana. What is adhisthana in temples? Usually the room which the idol is placed, main god of the temple, say Lord Subramanya or Saraswati or Lakshmi, whichever temple that is, or Shiva, the main room, okay, in which the god is placed, that is called as Garbhagriha, right? But I think it is also called as Adhisthana, right? So Adhisthana means the center point from which it begins. Adi, we also have this word Adi Mula or Adhisthana. Usually they use this in most religious preachings and all. You can hear people saying Adhisthana, Adi Mula, which means the center or the basis from which one originates or something begins. That is called as Adhisthana. Then Karta means doer. That is the person who is doing that. Then Karma, that is what the action that the person is doing. And the Chesta, so what are the efforts that the person is doing to do that action. Okay. And then Daiva or fate. So beyond all of this, there is something called as Daiva or fate. That is what our destiny is, right? These are the 5 factors which make up karma according to Lord Krishna. So in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that even if one wishes to give up action, one cannot do so, because every man is bound by his own nature to perform some action. Okay? When an action is performed for the welfare of others without any selfish motive, it becomes karma yoga. So we have these 2 words called as yoga and karma yoga. What is yoga? Yoga means something which we do for ourselves. That is yoga. Whereas karma yoga is the actions or the deeds which we do for others' welfare without having any selfish motive. Okay, so now Valentine's Day is going to come. So most of you will give gifts to your girlfriend or boyfriend. Isn't there a selfish motive in that? If you do it without any selfish motive, without expecting anything from your girlfriend or boyfriend in return, then it is karma yoga. If you are doing it with some selfish intention, thinking that they must also give you back some gift or you need something from them, then it is yoga. Okay, so did you all understand what is karma yoga and yoga? Okay, so I hope you understood the karma chapter. So now we shall move on to another topic in paper 2 anthropology, that is unit 3.4, impact of Jainism, Buddhism, Islam and Christianity on Indian society. And Christianity on Indian society. there's another chapter, that is unit 8.1. 8.1, impact of Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, Islam and other religions on tribal society. So we have two different topics. One is under unit 3.4 and the other one is under unit 8.1. So here basically we will be discussing in this chapter 3.4, the topic is impact of various religions like Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, Buddhism, Jainism on Indian society, how these religions have impacted Indian society. And then next under unit 8.1, it speaks about the impact of all these religions again on tribal society. So we will be clubbing these two chapters and discussing it together. Okay, so the impact of various religions like Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Jainism, how all these religions have impacted our Indian society and how these religions have impacted the tribal society. So they have given that under two different chapters, but we will club both of them and discuss it together. Okay, did you all understand? Fine. We all know that Indian subcontinent is a melting pot of races, isn't it? We have people following different cultures, different languages, different religion. We have certain religions which had birth in this Indian subcontinent like Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism. Then we have religions which took birth elsewhere and they moved into our country and they occupied a prominent position in our country also, like Islam, Christianity, isn't it? These are religions which had their birth outside of India, but they are also a prominent religion in our country as well. So if you see, Hinduism is one of the largest religions of the country, and the word Hindu was used to denote people who lived in the geographical area in and around the river Indus. So we get the word Hindu from the word Indus. So it is used to connote the people who lived in the geographical area in and around this river Indus. First and foremost, when we are discussing about the impact of religions, here we are not going to discuss about the tenets of any particular religion. We are not going into depth about what each religion preaches, who are the main gods, which are the main gods. So how does this religion originate? So what are the tenets of this religion, what it preaches, what are the practices, beliefs, customs of people belonging to this religion. We are not going to discuss about that. That will become a huge, it is a degree again. We have at least, I don't know how much in India, but in many other Western countries, you have degrees on religion studies, right? I think in India also we have few universities which offer degrees in religion studies. So even in IGNOU we have. So study about particular religions itself is a complete degree, and we wouldn't be going into that depth over here. We will not be discussing who is the founder of a particular religion, what did he preach, what are the tenets, what are the customs, why do they do this, what are the beliefs, practices. No, we are going to understand how each of these religions have impacted our Indian society. What are the contributions of these religions to our Indian society? What kind of impact they have had on our Indian society? And the same way, we will also be discussing how each of these religions have created an impact on the tribal society as well. So when we discuss about the impact of each of these religions on tribal society, First and foremost thing which we need to keep in mind or which we need to understand is, until a tribe is remaining isolated inside a jungle, there is no way any religion could impact him. Got it? Only when they came into culture contact, when they started moving out of the jungle, when they came into the mainstream society, they started moving out of the jungles and they came into cultural contact. They started taking up other culture. When they came into contact with the outsiders, it is then that other religions started impacting them. Okay, so this is very, very important. You need to keep in mind, and you have to write in your answer also in the exam or even in the interview when they ask you, how is it possible for certain religions to impact the people who are living in deep jungles? No, when they are living in deep jungles, when they are completely isolated from the outside world, they follow their tribal religion beliefs and practices, be it animism, animatism, totemism. This is the religion which they will be following. Once they come into culture contact with the outside world, it is then they start adopting the practices of the outside world. They adopt new religions. They start practicing the culture, festival and beliefs of the Hindu religion or other religion. They convert themselves into Christianity. So like this, only when they come into culture contact with the outside world, there is a possibility of any of these religion influencing their lives, but not until they are living an isolated life inside the jungles. Keep this in mind. This is a very, very important point. Okay, with that we shall begin. So, culture contact, if you see, culture contact between the tribals or the tribal population and the outside world has been happening since very, very age-old times. It is not something which happened very recently. Many people, even in many materials, if you see in the market, they give a wrong statement saying with the coming of the British, culture contact of the tribal population with the outside world began because they started allowing the contractors and money lenders to move into the tribal region. They opened up the tribal regions to the outside world, but this is not a right statement. See, yes, with the coming of the British, with the improvement in communication facilities, when they started venturing into the tribal regions, they came into contact with the outside world. No doubt about that. But this is not the first instance when the tribal population have been coming in culture contact with the outside world, or they are having culture contact with the outside world. When I was discussing tribe caste continuum few minutes back, I told you, there has been mention of the Khasas and the Bhils, isn't it? There has been mention of the Khasas and the Bhils. So there has been mention of the later tradition of the Khasas and Bhils in Ramayana and Mahabharata. So that itself shows that there was mixing or exchange of little tradition and great tradition happening during that time itself. So that itself is a proof that there has been some kind of culture contact that has been happening with the tribal, that has been happening by the tribal people or the tribal population with the outside world since the time of Ramayana and Mahabharata, and it is not something new which is happening now. But yes, with the coming of the British, it has hastened the process. You understand what's the meaning of hasten, right? Hasten means it has fastened the process. So when especially northeast and all, what the British did was they tried to convert all those all those regions into plantations for tea, right? So then, and improvement in communication, they building up of roads and all this. Yes, it made the tribal region accessible to the outsiders and thus bringing them into culture contact. But this is not the first instance when the tribals have been establishing culture contact with the outside world, because it has been happening right from the time of Ramayana and Mahabharata. That is, it has been happening from age-old times. Okay, fine. So when the tribal society comes into contact with the outside world, it adopts peasantization and also other religious practices, and they start following the Hindu beliefs, customs, festivals, values, and thereby slowly they start adopting Hinduism. However, if you see, the same can be applied to other religions also. So initially when they come into contact with the outside world, they adopt peasantization, that is, they get converted into peasants. You understand, we have already discussed peasantization and depeasantization. right? So when they come into contact with the outside world, they adopt peasantization and slowly they start following the practices, rituals, customs of the Hindu beliefs, traditions, and slowly they get into the Hindu sect. The same is the case with other religions as well. However, it is not a smooth process like how it happens in Hinduism. So in religions like Christianity and Islam, when they have to adopt that religion, like say Christianity or Islam, they have certain dogmas. Okay, so they have to the tribes cannot still retain their tribal culture and also adopt Christianity or Islam. They have to completely give up their tribal culture and then only they can adopt the new religions like Islam or Christianity, whereas that is not the case with Hinduism. In Hinduism, it is a smooth path for them. They still retain their tribal traditions, but at the same time they can also start practicing the new beliefs of Hindu religion. Okay, the beliefs, customs, festivals, traditions, practices of Hinduism, while at the same time retaining their tribal identity, tribal surnames. That is possible. So the transition or the movement of a tribe towards a Hindu, towards the Hindu religion, is a much more smooth process in comparison to their movement from the tribal sect to the other religions. Okay, the same can be applied to other religions also. However, the tribes who convert to Christianity, Islam, etc. have to give up their tribal culture and they have to adopt the new culture. There is no such dogma in Hinduism. That is why it is a smooth transition for them in Hinduism when compared to other religions like Islam and Christianity. Okay, say for example, Central Indian tribes like Gonds and Bills. So most of the Central Indian tribes have converted to Hinduism. You can find tribes in the entire Northeast have converted to Christianity, isn't it? You go to any Northeastern state, Manipur, Mizoram, any of these Northeastern states, the entire tribal population, hardly you can find any tribal population over there belonging to Hinduism or still retaining their tribal religion. Majority, at least more than 90% of Northeast population is converted to Christianity. So like this, how each of these religions have impacted our Indian society and the tribal society, that is what we will be discussing now. The tribes adopted the Hindu customs, beliefs, rituals, gods, festivals, traditions, and they gave up beef eating and drinking, which was essentially a part of tribal culture. So how did Hinduism impact the tribal life? How did people who came into the outside world and they started following Hinduism, that is they started following Hindu festivals, their beliefs, traditions, rituals, norms, practices. What happened was they started giving up their own tribal cultural beliefs, practices, and they started adopting the new belief, traditions, customs of Hindu religion. So as a part of that, what they did was they started giving up the consumption of meat and drinking of liquor, which is a very essential part of tribal culture, isn't it? When I discuss the problems of tribal communities, I told you that how the drinks, how it is an essential part of the tribal culture to make drinks at home, either through using rice or the mahua drink, which usually in the Central Indian tribes make that using the mahua flowers. They collect the dried flour and they make a drink out of that. And it is a consumption of meat. That is a very essential part of tribal culture, isn't it? When they are living inside the forest, they cannot think about vegetarianism, isn't it? It is an ecological compulsion to consume meat over there. So what happens is when they move into the outside world and they start practicing Hindu festivals, worshipping Hindu gods and all, they start giving up these practices of consumption of beef and drinking liquor. Then the simple tribal rituals were replaced with complex Hindu rituals. So if you see, when they were inside the forest, when they were following the tribal practices, suppose they had a marriage, it will be a very simple affair. So they will, their tribal leader will fix a particular date on which the boy and the girl can marry. That day morning, the entire, all the members belonging to that particular clan will assemble. They will cook the food on their own. They will make some drinks. The boy, the bride and the groom will come together. They will also have some simple rituals which they have to follow. and we do not know what kind of rituals they follow. They do it, and all of them sit together, eat, drink, and dance. So it's a very simple occasion. They celebrate it like that. But once they start adopting Hindu religion and practices, it becomes a complex affair. We all know how complex Hindu marriage is, isn't it? So we have Sangeet, we have Mehendi, then we have reception, then we have marriage, and in addition to this, we also have what is that parties before the marriage, that is bachelorette party, right? So it is an elaborate affair in Hindu system. At least now we celebrate it for 2-3 days. That's all. But earlier I used to hear my grandparents tell that in olden days, especially in Brahmin weddings, they used to conduct the wedding for 1 week. Imagine, for 1 week they used to conduct the wedding ritual. But in those days it was possible because they had limited number of guests and the rituals and ceremonies were very simple. Right? It was not elaborate, and they did not have hundreds and thousands of guests. But now that is not the case. For every ceremony, you have at least 1,000 to 2,000 guests. And now that too, we have destination weddings where they take that entire relatives, the how many ever guests to a destination like Goa if it is within India, or if it is outside the country. Then imagine the expenditure they'll have to incur, right? So wedding is a very, very expensive affair nowadays. So this is what is happening. So one more thing is, the tribal rituals for any ceremony, be it marriage or anything, it used to be very simple, it used to be inexpensive, and they did not have to have any particular priest or something to conduct that. Their own tribal leader will conduct officiate, and he will do all the religious rituals, and they will finish it as a simple affair. Whereas once they start adopting Hinduism, their rituals are also becoming costly, expensive, and they require the service of the priest also. Okay. The practice of bride wealth was replaced by dowry system, leading the tribes into indebtedness and poverty. So among the tribal population, there was no concept of dowry. They only had the concept of bride price, isn't it? So what is bride price? When a man is going to marry a girl, the girl's family is going to lose the services that the girl was offering to her family. So what the man will do is, he will go pay them some, most of the time it's not even in terms of cash. He'll go pay them so many pigs, or he will go to the girl's home and he will stay there with them for 3 years, 4 years, work for them, and then only he can marry that girl. So this is what we mean by bride price. That is the duty or the services or whatever gifts that the groom is offering to the girl's family to compensate for the loss of the girl's family. That is, whatever services the girl would have provided to her family, it is a loss to them, because the girl will move out of the family when she marries that guy. So to compensate for that, the guy will pay them in terms of service or in terms of gifts or anything like this. But there was no practice of dowry system. But when they started adopting Hinduism, they also started following the system of dowry, which we all know what it is, right? Then because of this, what happens? They'll have to borrow a lot of money to get their daughters married. They will borrow money at very high income, very high interest rates, and they fall into the debt trap. And that also again leads to poverty. So when they are unable to repay their money, it leads to a lot of problems, and women are pushed into prostitution. So such many problems arise. Then exploitation of the tribals also started happening once they started coming into the outside world. So we know how the people exploited them, cheating them, the middlemen, contractors, because they did not have much knowledge about the outside world. They are very vulnerable, they are gullible. It's very easy to cheat them. So outside people started exploiting them for their gains. The money lenders giving them money, or giving them money for very high interest rates, and then traders cheating them, contractors cheating them, and even officials used to exploit them for their benefits. Then they were no more egalitarian. So tribal society is segmented and egalitarian, isn't it? Whereas when they started adopting Hinduism, they also became like the caste group system. So again among them, now you will find hierarchical system. That is, one group is placed above the other, one group is placed below the other. So they also started following a caste group, a kind of hierarchical system, and they are no more a egalitarian society. And they also lost belief in their magic and belief. Okay, once they started adopting other religions, they lost belief in their own magic, whatever they used to do when they were in the jungles. They had their own, I even gave you one example of rolling the stones from the hilltops, isn't it? So if a tribe has this belief that if they roll the huge boulders or huge rocks from the hilltop towards the base, the boulders will keep rolling and that creates a sound. That sound is similar to the sound of thunder that is caused during rain. So this sound, they believe that will bring in rainfall. So like that they had lot of belief in their own religion, be it animism, animatism, totemism, or whatever religion they followed, and they had belief in their magic, rituals, everything. But once they started taking up other religions, they lost belief in their own religion and magic. Also, child marriage became an important part of these people. So until they were inside the jungles and they were following their own religions, there was no concept of child marriage. So child marriage is not a concept of tribal culture at all. So sometimes you can even get a question regarding somewhere related to this. So don't think like that. So tribes are living inside the jungle, they'll marry at a very young age, so it is a part of their culture. No. Child marriage has never been a part of tribal culture. Only when they started adopting other religions, child marriage started becoming a part and parcel of their life. Even now you can find child marriage happening in many parts of Rajasthan, UP, Bihar, isn't it? So less the development, more is these kind of practices, isn't it? Whereas in very well developed regions you cannot find, there will be exceptions, one or two, but otherwise you cannot find this rampant practices over there. Same is the case with dowry also, child marriage also, and treatment of women, how women are treated. Okay, so all of this. Next, Jainism and Buddhism. Both Jainism and Buddhism had their birth in our Indian subcontinent, and both these religions are an offshoot of Hinduism. They are an offshoot of Hinduism. What do we mean by that? So people were fed up with the Hindu system of caste hierarchy, that is people being classified based on their birth. So if you're born into a higher caste, you get a better status. If you're born into a lower caste, you get a very low status, and people of the highest status, people of the higher caste, discriminating the people of the lower caste, and it is always the members who belong to the lower caste who were at the receiving end. They were discriminated, they were not given equal opportunities, equal position, respect, dignity, okay, or even opportunity to take up any occupation which they want to, right? So it was the lower caste people who were largely suppressed by the caste system, by the Hindu hierarchical caste system. So when Gautam Buddha or Mahavir Jaina came up with religions which preached equality, they said no, there's nothing like a higher status or a higher caste or a lower caste just because of your birth. All people are equal. Then people started moving out of Hinduism and they started adopting Buddhism and Jainism. So both Buddhism and Jainism are offshoots to Hinduism. Okay. So it was the Brahminical domination and the privileges enjoyed exclusively by the priestly caste, which was the main reason for the birth of these new religion. So there was severe Brahminical domination, and no matter what religious ceremony or occasions you need to conduct, you definitely had to invite the priest to officiate that ceremony, be it a marriage or be it a housewarming ceremony or be it naming ceremony of your child. For anything and everything, it was mandatory that we had to invite a priest and the priest would officiate and conduct the rituals. And the Brahminical domination was imposed on the lower caste people. So this was the main reason for the birth of these religions, Jainism and Buddhism. So they were offshoots of Buddhism and Jainism. So Jainism developed as an offshoot for Hinduism, and it was an antidote for Brahminical domination, and it preaches equality. Are you following whatever we are discussing? Yes? Okay. So, and these two religions, what they did was, they preached equality. They did not believe in classifying or grouping people and arranging them in a hierarchical fashion, saying one is superior and the other one is inferior. Okay, so Jainism preaches equality, which is the essence of constitution, and the philosophy of equality in constitution gets its source from Jainism, isn't it? We have fundamental rights, we have right to equality, so all that is derived from, based on the source for this is Jainism. So Jainism has doctrines that you should not commit violence, speak a lie, you should not steal, you should not acquire property, and you should observe brahmacharya, and it teaches moral values like austerity and asteya, that is, you should not steal. Austerity means living within your means, right? How much ever, suppose you are earning 100 rupees, live within that. It's not like you earn 100 rupees and you spend 200 rupees by taking loans, right? I don't know why from last 6 months or so, there are there is an increase in the number of calls offering loans. Many a times we can simply say, no, I'm not in need of that. But after a certain time, it becomes so irritating. I have sometimes asked those people, are you giving a loan without any documents? Are you giving it free of cost without any interest? Then definitely I will take a loan. Okay. Right. So the contributions of Jainism to Indian society, what are they? They are rock cut architecture. You can see the Jain architecture in various places in our country, various monuments. So you can see rock cut architecture in Indrasabha cave in Ellora, isn't it? See how beautiful it is. In Indrasabha cave in Ellora, you can find the temple architecture, rock cut architecture, the paintings based on Jainism. So you can find them in Dilwara temple in Rajasthan, Khajuraho, Madhya Pradesh, Gomteshwara in Karnataka, okay, in Shravan Belagola. In Hassan, there is a Shravan Belagola where once in 12 years there is a huge Abhisheka which happens once in 12 years, that is called as Mahamastabhisheka, isn't it? To Lord Gomateshwara. So this is Khajuraho temple. Hope you can see this. See, this is again Jain architecture. Then this is again Khajuraho temple. How beautiful it is. These are all Jain architecture. Then this is again a temple, Luna Vasahi temple in Dilwara. See this dome structure over here. So these are all Jain architecture. Then this is in Mount Abu, Rajasthan. This is also a Jain temple in Mount Abu, Rajasthan. This is our this is our Gomateshwara at Shravan Belagola. We have one huge Gomateshwara in Dharmasthala also in Karnataka. This is in Shravan Belagola, Gomateshwara statue. This is Tiger Cave at Udayagiri. See here, you can see this resembles the face of a tiger. That is why it's called as Tiger Cave. Tiger Cave at Udayagiri. So how did Jainism affect? How did Jainism, so now I told you how Jainism impacted the Indian society. So what are the contributions of Jainism to Indian society are be it paintings, rock cut architecture, temple architecture and so on. So how did Jainism impact the tribal societies? See, in the very beginning I told you that until a tribe remains isolated inside a jungle, it is not impacted by any religion whatsoever. But once they come into culture contact with the outside world, they start adopting the practices, rituals, beliefs, festivals of the other religion, and it creates an impact in their life. So you can see that only the tribes who came in touch with the civilized world were influenced by Jainism, whereas the tribal population who were isolated inside the jungles, Jainism did not have any impact on them. Next, moving on to Buddhism. So Buddhism is also again an offshoot of Hinduism. It is an antidote for the Brahminical domination of Hinduism, and it also preached equality, and it also brought about a major change in the Indian society. So what are the contributions of Buddhism to Indian society? It preaches the principles of compassion and equality among the human beings, isn't it? So the Ashoka Chakra, the lion emblem, all of this we have got from Buddhism, from the principles of Buddhism, right? So Gandhiji himself was influenced by the Buddhist principle of ahimsa, that is, you should not kill anybody else, right? So these are the most important principles of preached by Buddhism, that is equality, compassion and principle of ahimsa. So even our foreign policy is derived from the Buddhist principles only. The Panchashil, the Ashoka's wheel, the national emblem of India, the lion capital at Sarnath, all of these are derived from Buddhism. In addition to this, you can see that the contribution of Buddhism in education is huge. It has a huge impact on education, not just in India, but in entire Asia. So you can see that earliest educational hubs or educational centers in Asia, like the Nalanda, Taxila, Vikramapur, Vikramashila, they served as excellent education centers for entire Asia. So these were the educational hubs, educational centers for the entire Asia region, not just for India. So the contribution of Buddhism in these places is huge. Then even there is a quote from Dalai Lama saying that Tibet was filled with darkness. Only Nalanda gave light to Tibet. That is true, isn't it? So else it would have remained in darkness. So you can find majority religion of Tibet is Buddhism, right? So Dalai Lama says that Tibet was filled with darkness and it was only Nalanda which gave light to Tibet. Then you can see the contribution of Buddhism in architecture also, like the viharas, stupas, then it also preaches a lot of values like compassion, purity, charity, love, equality, welfare of social equality, social justice, isn't it? So these are the various architectural contributions of Buddhism to Indian society, the viharas and the stupas. See, you can see this is the Buddhist cave temple. This is Chaityalaya. This is Gandhara art. Can you see this? This is Gandhara art, which is again a contribution of Buddhism. Then we have the lion capital or the Ashoka pillar at Sarnath. Then we have the national emblem. This is the Sanchi Stupa. I'm sure you will be reading a lot about all this in art and culture, isn't it? This is Sanchi Stupa. This is a stupa at Sarnath. This is the Udayagiri and Kandagiri caves. Udayagiri and Kandagiri caves. This is a vihara in Bali. So impact of Buddhism is not just limited to India. It has, you can see its huge impact in Southeast Asia as well. Almost entire Asia, especially in Southeast Asia. Next, moving on. Do we still have time? Yes. We have some more time. Okay. So what does the word Islam mean? Islam means surrendering oneself to God. Okay. So Islam again preaches a lot of humanistic concepts, fraternity of human beings, isn't it? That is universal brotherhood. That is a very important principle of Islam. The concept of universal brotherhood. That is why you can see that if you go to any Muslim weddings, you can find people sitting together and eating from the same, what do you call that? There will be a huge bowl in which they would have placed the food, and people will sit in round tables across, in a circular table. In the center they would have placed a huge bowl containing biryani, and you can find some 5 to 7 members sitting around the table, and they will serve themselves food from that same huge bowl, and they will have. So it preaches universal brotherhood, then the fraternity of human beings, justice as the principle of ethics, charity. So you can find that on all Muslim festivals, they follow the practice of charity, that is giving away alms, food for the people who are in need, isn't it? So they also preach peace for all. So these are the various important principles preached by Islam. So the word Islam means surrendering oneself to God, and it is influencing the society through its humanistic concepts. It preached universal brotherhood, charity, mercy, justice. So what are the contributions of Islam on Indian society? So have you heard about Unani system of medicine? Yes, Unani system of medicine is a contribution of Islam to Indian society. Then we also have contributions in the form of music. So there's ghazals, lavani, thumri, qawwali. So if you have watched that movie, there's the song Aishwarya Rai and Hrithik Roshan, Khwaja Meri Khwaja. Which movie is that? Jodha Akbar, right? In Jodha Akbar movie, and in many other movies also you can find such songs. Those are all a contribution of Islam. So these musics like ghazals, lavani, thumri, qawwali, dhun, chatrang, and also musical instruments like sarangi, dilruba, sitar, surbin, tabla, all these are again contribution of Islam. Then dance, Kathak style of dance. Have you seen Kathak dance? How beautiful, it's just mesmerizing, isn't it? So even in Kamal Hassan's one movie, I think Dashawataram, so the introduction of Andrea, is it Dashawataram? No, it's not Dashawataram. Another movie after Dashawataram, I guess. So the introduction of Andrea in that movie, Kamal Hassan's movie, begins with a Kathak dance. So Kamal Hassan will be he is a dance teacher and she'll be the student. So what is Kathak basically? It is in whose praise, what are the main characters in Kathak? Can any of you tell me? Kathak is a very beautiful dance form. Okay. Then the Chuktai style of paintings. Okay. See, this is a Islamic painting. So paintings like this, the Chuktai style of painting, the dressing patterns. Lot of dressing patterns we have adopted from Islam, like the Anarkali pattern, right? Anarkali pattern you can find even in kurtas for men, and in women also Anarkali pattern kurtas, Anarkali pattern gowns are pretty common. It looks very nice. So that is again a contribution of Islam. Okay. Then in art, architecture and culture, you can find a lot of domes, turrets, arches, minarets are very famous. Qutub Minar in Delhi, isn't it? It's very close to the airport. So if you go to Qutub Minar, there is a place like a lawn over there. If you sit over there, you can see the flights flying very close by. And it's a nice place to spend some time, provided you have interest in history, arts and all these. Right? Then the Taj Mahal, Qutub Minar, minarets, tombs, dressing pattern, jewelry. So you must have noticed, at least in most of the North Indian weddings, they use this jewelry where they put a huge ring in the nose of the bride, isn't it? That is called as nat. Nowadays here in South India also they are following, but it is not a traditional culture in South India. But in North Indian weddings, I think most of them follow that. They put a huge ring over here in the nose that will be connected through a chain. They tie it here. That is called as nat, isn't it? So that is also their contribution. Then the rupee was introduced by Sher Shah. Jagir, the land revenue assignment, that was also introduced by the Muslims. Then the Urdu language. See here you can see Qutub Minar, right? The Urdu language. So many of the words which we use commonly in our day-to-day life, we think it's Hindi, but it is not. It is from Urdu. They have had their origin from Urdu. Say for example, words like Sipahi. Sipahi means police. We say Sipahi in Hindi for police, right? But it is a Urdu term. Then Naukar, Kurta, Pajama, Istri. What do you mean by Istri? Istri means pressing clothes, ironing. We say ironing or pressing clothes. That is called Istri. That is not a Hindi word. That is a Urdu word again. So like this we have Sarai, various words which have been contributed by the Urdu language. So how did the religion Islam impact the tribal population? So the Muslim rulers encouraged the tribes to clear the forest and start agriculture, like the Jahangir. So what he did was, in the Tarai region, he encouraged the tribal population to occupy that region, to clear the forest and start agriculture, because those regions were highly infested with mosquitoes and other people could not survive over there. Okay, so it is this is how the Islam religion, the Islamic rulers encourage the tribes, and also many tribal population have converted to Islam, like the tribes like Siddhis of Gujarat. Okay. Siddhis of Gujarat. Siddhis of Gujarat, Gujars of northwestern Himalayan region. So you know who are Gujars, right? So whenever they show any songs which have been shot in Kashmir Valley, they'll show one person running behind a flock of sheep, isn't it? So Bakrewalas, they are the Bakrewalas. This Gujars also similar to them. Okay, so Gujars of Northwest Himalayan regions, Bakrewals of Jammu and Kashmir, the Bhils, Kolis. So these are the tribes who converted to Islam. Then Sher Shah built the Great Grand Trunk Road, which extends from in the western. It begins in Kabul, Afghanistan, and it goes all the way up to Chittagong in Bangladesh. So this huge stretch of road called the Grand Trunk Road was again built by a Muslim ruler, Sher Shah Suri. Okay, so these are the various important contributions of Islam towards tribal society. Next, moving on to Christianity. We'll finish Christianity and wind up the session. Okay. So the moment we say Christianity, what instantly do we get in mind? The work of Christian missionaries in the field of education and healthcare, especially hospitals, right? That is huge and enormous. Even now, if you see, the best hospitals and the best educational institutions in the country will be run by Christian missionaries. So the contribution of Christians in the field of education and healthcare sector is unmatched. It is huge and enormous. Okay, you see any state, any district, they will have a Christian school. They will have a hospital which is run by the Christian missionaries. Okay, so again Christianity emphasizes on service for the underprivileged and also on equalitarianism. That is, they also preach that all people are equal, and they also preach service, doing service for the people who are in poverty or who are underprivileged. And they also give emphasis on social welfare, you know, with the best contributions of Mother Teresa, isn't it? So like that you can find the Christian missionaries' contribution in the field of social welfare, be it in education or be it in healthcare sector, that is huge and enormous. In terms of architecture, you can see the Victoria Mahal in Calcutta, Rashtrapati Bhavan. So these are all architecture influenced by Christianity. See, this is a parliament building. Even when you go to the Connaught Place in Delhi, which is called as CP in short form, you can see a lot of pillars, structures, and all that is again British architecture. Okay. So this is Parliament building. This architecture is again influenced by Christianity. This is Rashtrapati Bhavan. This is Victoria Mahal. Where is Victoria Mahal? In Calcutta. Isn't it? All of these are influenced by Christianity. So even the food which we consume, many food, English foods, right? So when you go for buffet breakfast in big hotels, they will have English breakfast as well as Indian breakfast. So in English breakfast, you can find a lot of these foods like many English food like bread, bun, butter. Okay, so all that also we got from the Christianity. Then again, what happened to how did Christianity influence the tribal population? So I told you, almost entire northeastern population has been converted to Christianity. So not just that, they have contributed enormously to the social welfare of the tribal population in terms of education. You can see in Northeast tribal population are very well educated. That is thanks to the efforts of the Christian missionaries. So the contribution of Christianity in terms of or in the field of healthcare and education is enormous, and you can write lot of examples for that. With this we shall wind up this lecture.